And now, an Envision Financial podcast with Luke Smith on Canberra's 2CC.
And good to have your company. Good to have the company of Luke Smith from Envision Finance, once again being Friday afternoon at this time. We're getting towards the end of the financial year as we go into the new financial year. And we might, like a new year, we make some New Year resolutions. We might find some new financial habits to adopt, maybe. With a new financial year upon us, how about a review of what you've been doing or a few small tweaks to make next year a little better? Is that the idea for today?
Look, exactly right. We've been sort of banging on for the last 5, 6, 7 weeks about preparing. And there's still a little bit of a window if you need to get your super contrib in. I think if you haven't got your pension payments out by now, you're going to be in a bit of trouble. But contributions, we just remember, check with your fund. I'm finding a lot of people are going to get it done next week. Call your fund and find out if they are closing prior. Do not assume that 30 June is the deadline, because I was only on the phone to somebody yesterday who said their fund is shutting on the 26th. So check with your fund
get in there.
If you're trying to get your contributions in. And we've been preparing. Today we're just going to have a chat about, what could we do to create good financial behaviours in the new financial year, and some little ideas, I think, as a New Year's resolution, if you like, from a financial perspective. It's a good chance to just take stock, sit down and have a look at a few things. And, as far as what you're doing and where money goes, that's where I'd start. Everybody comes in, sits down and says, "Oh, Luke, I don't know what we live on. What does everybody else live on?" And the answer to that is, well, it really doesn't matter what other people do.
You make the point that the word budget does scare a lot of people.
Oh, look, completely. And as someone who is pro-shop, I think a budget is really just a way to try and mediate behaviour. It's not about stopping doing the things that you love. It's not about stopping things that are a part of your family's lifestyle. It's just about taking stock. Really, it's about limiting discretionary waste, because we've all got costs. We've all got things we like doing, regardless of what they are. But I think if we can try and identify the waste in a budget, that could then be used very proactively into a micro investing app, into a Vanguard, into a Beta Shares Direct, into something that would let you start a little something a little sooner. Because one of the biggest misconceptions that I have people come into the office with is, well, I'd love to do that, but I don't have $10,000 to start. And I think that's one of the greatest misconceptions of the financial environment, is the size of the opportunity. You can open a Vanguard account with $200.
Okay.
You can open a micro investing app.
I was going to ask you what's the minimum, but you could do
so
that.
Vanguard's 200. I think Beta Shares might be 500. And you can open a micro investing app like Raise, for example, with $100, maybe less. My point there is, start a new behaviour and automate it where you can. You don't have to be a stock picker. You don't have to be a financial guru. Think about a little portfolio in your own name, exactly like most people look at their super. They go and pick the balanced option, which generally means you've got 60 to 70% of that option in growth assets. Do exactly the same for something in your own name. Vanguard's just one example as a massive provider globally of investment options. It's a name that some people are a little bit more familiar with, but they have a retail platform that anybody can use, anybody can open. You can go on there and pick a growth option. That would be very, very similar to picking a balanced option in any super fund in an industry account.
Apps scare a lot of people too, as much as budget. But apps, are they easy to use? Are they easy to navigate around?
Yeah, look, and again, we've spoken about that Raise one in the past, and there are loads out there. Again, I'm not saying use that one specifically, but the nice thing about the micro investing apps, like the websites that are provided by some of those larger names, is you go into it, you link a bank account, you transfer in an amount you want to start with. You could probably start with $50. Then you might say, okay, can I find $20 a week to put into this thing, and automate it as a direct debit out of the linked bank account?
Don't miss it.
And then don't look at it for 5 years. Like, that is literally all you have to do. Another big misconception, I need to be selling this and buying that and I don't know what to acquire. Well, 95% of people couldn't tell you what's in a balanced option of an industry fund either. So think about it like that. Pick a growth option, which is going to be about 70% growth assets, because you don't want to be too defensive because it's not going to grow at the same rate. Pick a pre-designed option. Pick what you want to start, pick what you want to put in a week, and leave it alone. Automation is your best friend. Your second best friend is time. So if you can make the most of that and leave it alone, and then if you have a pay rise or something happens and you want to bump a little bit more in there and turn 20 a week into 30 a week into 40 a week, whatever number works for you in your situation. It's not about trying to do more than your mates or less than your mates. Just do what works for you that you can sustain for the longer term so that you don't become disenfranchised with a reduction in other areas that you really like, because that's when I find people get rid of things. If you're a little closer to 60, go to work and say, listen, Mr. or Mrs. HR, can you put $50, $100 a fortnight into my super, please? And go old school salary sacrifice.
Okay.
Now, we spoke in the past about...
Salary sacrifice, people think, oh, yes, I can drive a nice car and sacrifice salary on that. But,
correct.
But you're looking at it the other way, so
correct.
invest with it.
That's it. So salary sacrifice on a pre-tax basis into superannuation. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you don't go over your $30,000 limit, because that $30,000 limit, as we've discussed in previous shows, covers off what comes from your employer and what comes from you, from all employment sources. I had a lady argue with me the other day that she has a $60,000 limit because she has 2 jobs. And that conversation didn't end well for her.
You're being very diplomatic.
But start something in July,
yeah,
and just start something small, and then just review it during the year. If you find you're still saving a lot of money, if you can bolster your superannuation and save 20 to 25% in tax, I think that's a wonderful choice. And again, if you just do little increments on a fortnightly basis, you don't have to find a big amount of money at the end of the year, which is, again, a lot more sustainable and a lot easier to sort of swallow. And again, you don't find that there's a massive reduction in your after-tax wages that's going to drive decisions about, well, we can't do this anymore and we can't do that. So they'd be some things that I'd be looking at. I'd also then, as you said, set some goals. I'd be looking at setting some short-term goals. Now, I find here people go, okay, it's the 1st of July, I'm going to save $30,000 by the 30th of June.
Yeah.
And then the washing machine blows up, one of the kids needs braces.
And it always happens.
There's school uniforms, kids lost their hats again. They're sneaky expensive, those hats. So I think if you're going to plan with short-term goals. Make it a month, make it a quarter. If you hit the goal, reward yourself and then reset the goal. I don't think people have the ability to sustain something on an ongoing basis for a full 12-month period. I think if you work on a quarterly basis, you're going to remain engaged with the process, and you can also recover from setbacks that may not be your fault. If the car blows up, okay, that happens, and you've just got to keep going. Don't become disenfranchised because of short-term issues.
I know one of your points is to get rid of the junk. Get rid of the junk if you're at home. Stuff that you're not using, get rid of it.
Yeah, look,
I
exactly.
just hope my lady isn't listening right now.
Well, my wife's the queen of throwing things out. That's why I sort of stay at work, because if I sit down for too long, she'd throw me out. But I think that's a great one, right? We've all collected stuff, and we've got stuff in the garage, and we've got things that we don't use, or we don't like that bike. You know, again, these all have value. So if you did want to have a bit of a declutter and keep your significant other happy by getting rid of some of the garbage you've got, think about selling some of that stuff. You can do it on Marketplace. You can do it on the other one. There's loads of ways now to do it very easily. Use technology to your advantage. Get a little bit of money. That could be a great way to increase what you save every month, or be great seed capital for a little portfolio for the grandkids that you can add to over time. It all works in moving forwards with good behaviours in the new financial year.
Okay, I think the key message there is to, maybe you might have to alter your lifestyle a little bit.
A smidge.
Yeah, well, what I say, when wine, women and song get too much, well, just cut back your singing. Isn't that the way it goes? Luke Smith. So we're talking about July, what we should be looking at before we get to July, mostly. Yep. What are the key things people can do to make better decisions from July onwards? Yeah,
so I think have a look and see where money's going. I generally find that people underestimate little costs or reoccurring costs, and dismiss them as not significant. The notorious one there is lunches, coffees, eating out. It's not that bad. When you actually sit down and work it out over a month, it can be quite frightening.
Yeah.
I think similar could be said for pay TV channels. We all sit there and scroll through trying to find something to watch from 5 different providers, and then we end up going to bed because there's nothing to watch. But they all cost, that one's $6, that one's $12, and then you haven't looked for a couple of years, and all of a sudden on a statement it's $32 a month, and you go, oh, hang on, I've got 4 of those.
Anna, turn the radio off.
Am I using them? So I think understanding where stuff's going, and a lot of banking apps now are really good at categorising expenses, and at least it makes it easier to look at where things are going, even just on your phone.
Yeah, you mentioned the pay TV things and all that sort of thing. Now, I watch not much pay TV except through the news channels because I'm a news junkie. But I can see somebody who say, the cold nights, I haven't got too many luxuries in life. Why the hell shouldn't I spoil myself with Stan and Binge and all the rest of the stuff?
Well, I'm all for that sort of stuff. But again, do you need 6 of them? Or when was the last time you watched something on that particular channel?
That's the key.
That's
the key.
Having it, and just because it's there, you sort of go, when was the last time I watched something on Stan? Actually, everything we watch is Prime and Disney and something. So just vet out, again, try and eliminate that discretionary waste just through habit. And I find it's habit that causes the problem. So if you can clean that stuff out, like things that don't, girls are notorious for this. Oh, that used to fit me. But are you ever going to get back in that?
Yes.
Now, if you're brave enough to say that to your spouse, fair play to you. But again, for the girls
they
out
used to
there,
say, I've got a whole cupboard full of nothing to wear.
Well, exactly right. There could all be something newer.
Yeah.
But then, maybe have a rule, 1 in, 1 out.
Yeah.
And sell some of this stuff off because it has huge value. And, my wife's general rule is if I haven't worn it in the last 6 months, it's going. And I think that's a great way to do it. So, at least then you've created a way for you to say, well, I will buy something new because I've just got rid of those things. So just try and generate some income so that you can create a little portfolio. As we said before the ad break, a little portfolio and start a little something a little sooner. I think
micro app
is wonderful. Yep, and a micro app is a way to do it. Or you can go to a big provider like a Vanguard and open up a diversified ETF where you don't have to pick the underlying investments. Just think about it like your super. I've got a balanced option in the super fund. Give me a balanced option in something like a Vanguard. Open it up with a little bit of money. Add a little bit of money every week. And look at it in 10 years. Like, it is literally that easy. You will thank me in a decade, regardless of what you do. Something is better than nothing.
Yeah, so I like the idea of setting those short-term goals and review them as you go along. Don't get too ambitious.
Exactly. It's like going to the gym the first time and going, okay, I'm going to do this. And, 4 days later you can't walk and you're petrified of going to the toilet because you can't get up. But consistency is the real winner there. It's not about the volume. It's not about the amount. It's about the consistency. You need to create consequence. And if you can create consequence through committed behaviour, like a mortgage does to most people for their working life, I have a mortgage, I must pay that, and you make it work. You need the consequence. A mortgage is just an example, but if you commit to something, stick to it, because that consequence will hold you accountable, and good things come from being accountable and being consistent.
Okay, notice one point you do make is the key one. Know your strengths and lean into them.
Look, completely. And I find a lot of people end up here competing with their peers. Oh, my friend Johnny's saving this much. Oh, I can't do that much. Oh, well, what's the point? Don't worry about what other people are doing. For 20-something years, people have walked into my office and said, what do I need to live on? I don't know. What do you live on? And the answer is, I don't know. And then they look at me and go, can I retire? And I go, I don't know. You've got to give me some tools to try and find you a solution. Yeah. This is a great way to just start something. Yeah. It's not a race. It's not a competition. It's consistency. It's time. It's repetition. It's automation. It's using technology. This is not as hard as people think. Open an account. Put an amount of money in. Pick an amount to go in every week or every month. Leave it alone. That is it. Forget about it for a decade. It does not matter.
But shouldn't you also allow for a little bit of contingency, like the school hat, like the, somebody...
Oh, totally. And I think if you're going to start something, and that's why I'm saying, don't go neck deep right out of the gates, because that's when you become disenfranchised. If you can save $100 a week and you can put 30 into a portfolio, you've got 70 for other stuff. And that's what I mean. Don't try and set a 12-month goal and then get upset 3 months in. Set short-term goals and then reassess, because then you can bounce back.
Okay.
So if you had a bad period, move into a good one.
How do you make sense? Okay.
I try.
Where can we get more information?
Yeah, so office number 62604749. We've got envisionfinancial.com.au on the internet. We've got the podcast, The Strategy Stacker, Luke Talks Money on iTunes and Spotify. And we've got Smart Money Strategy, your ultimate guide to financial planning, in all good and bad bookstores and online. And there's a raft of budgeting and investment options in there. There's an entire chapter on how to start with something small.
Righto, legend. Better let you go. By the way, you'll be back next Friday afternoon with a voice that you have worked with before.
Yes,
Richard
a blast
Perno.
from the past. Yeah, look forward to it. Should be great.
Back to fill in for a little
Should
while.
be awesome. Yep.
While Leon takes some leave. Okay, good to see you, old friend. And we'll
see you
catch
soon.
up again when somebody else is sick or goes away on holidays or whatever the case may be.
Will do, buddy.
Luke Smith from Envision Financial. And he will be back next Friday afternoon with Richard Perno. Remember Richard? You'll get to know him next week.